Your heart is racing. Your palms are sweating. You haven't done anything dangerous. You're just sitting at your desk, staring at an email you haven't answered yet. But your body doesn't know that. It thinks something is hunting you. That feeling has a name. You call it anxiety. But the real answer is far stranger. What if that feeling isn't a malfunction at all? What if it's a 200,000-year-old survival system, still running, still watching, still convinced you're in danger? Let's go back. Long before emails, long before deadlines, long before anything you'd recognize as modern life. Your ancestors lived on the edge of the savanna. Every rustle in the grass could be wind, or it could be a lion. There was no way to know in advance. So evolution didn't build a brain that waited to find out. It built a brain that assumed the worst every single time. This is called threat bias, and it kept people alive. A person who heard a rustle and thought probably nothing sometimes got eaten. A person who heard a rustle and thought run almost never did. Over hundreds of thousands of years, only one of those instincts got passed down. You inherited the second one. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux spent decades studying a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain called the amygdala. It's fast, it's older than language, and it doesn't wait for your conscious mind to weigh in. Ledoux found that the amygdala can trigger a fear response before the rest of your brain even knows what it's reacting to. You feel scared first. You understand why second. That's not a flaw. That's the design. Think about the last time you felt a flash of panic before you consciously registered the reason. A car horn, a missed call from an unknown number, a sudden silence in a room that was loud a second ago. Your body reacted before your mind caught up. That gap, that half second where your heart already knows something your brain hasn't confirmed yet, is the same gap that once separated survival from death on an open plain. Here's where it gets stranger. Your body cannot tell the difference between a lion and a deadline. Both trigger the same chemical cascade. Cortisol rises, your heart rate climbs. Blood moves away from digestion and towards your limbs, preparing you to run or fight. This response is ancient, and it is completely indiscriminate. It doesn't check whether the threat is physical or social, real or imagined, 5 seconds away or 5 weeks away. Stanford neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky spent years studying this exact mismatch. He observed that most wild animals experience stress in short, sharp bursts. A zebra runs from a lion, the danger passes, and the zebra's stress hormones return to baseline within minutes. But humans, Sapolsky pointed out, can activate that same stress response just by thinking about a threat that hasn't happened yet and might never happen at all. A zebra doesn't lie awake replaying an argument. A zebra doesn't imagine failing a job interview 3 weeks from now. You do. And every time you do, your ancient alarm system fires exactly as if a predator were standing in front of you. So why hasn't evolution fixed this? Why are you still walking around with a smoke detector this sensitive? Because from evolution's perspective, it never needed fixing. Evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Nesse has argued that anxiety isn't a disorder in the way we usually think about disorders. It's a defense system. Nesse compared it to physical pain. Pain feels bad, but it exists because it protects you from touching fire twice. Anxiety, in his view, works the same way. It feels bad so that you take a threat seriously. The problem isn't that the alarm exists. The problem is that the alarm was built for a world with lions in the grass, and you're using it in a world with notifications on a screen. Consider what your ancestors actually needed to fear. Predators, starvation, exile from the group, which in a small hunter-gatherer band could mean death, because survival depended entirely on cooperation. Being cast out wasn't an inconvenience, it was often a death sentence. That's important because it explains something about modern anxiety that doesn't seem to make sense at first. Why do so many people fear public speaking more than almost anything else? There's no physical danger in standing at a podium, no lion, no cliff edge. And yet, the body reacts as though there is. The answer is social exile. Standing in front of a group and being judged, rejected, or humiliated once carried the same evolutionary weight as physical danger. Your nervous system still treats it that way. When your hands shake before a presentation, that's not weakness. That's a 200,000-year-old alarm system mistaking a conference room for a tribal council that could decide whether you eat tonight. This is the part that changes how you might see your own anxious moments. You're not broken when your chest tightens before an email response. You're running software that was never updated for the environment you're running it in. Think about scrolling through social media late at night. You see someone succeeding, thriving, moving forward, and something in your gut tightens. That feeling is comparison anxiety, but underneath it is something older. In a hunter-gatherer band of maybe 30 to 50 people, falling behind the group wasn't just uncomfortable, it could mean losing your place in the only support system you had. Your brain still runs that calculation, even though the group you're comparing yourself to now is thousands of strangers on a screen. Here's the twist that most people never consider. The very people in history who felt the least anxiety, who calmly ignored rustling grass, who didn't worry about being excluded from the group, who didn't lie awake thinking about tomorrow's risks, were often the ones who didn't survive long enough to pass anything down. You are, in a very real sense, descended from the worriers. The anxious ones. The ones who assumed danger first and asked questions later. That's an uncomfortable inheritance, but it's also, strangely, a kind of proof. Every anxious thought you've ever had is evidence of an unbroken chain of ancestors who took their fears seriously enough to survive it. So what do you do with an alarm system this old, this sensitive, and this poorly matched to your actual life? You don't silence it. You can't? Not really. What you can do is recognize it for what it is. When your chest tightens before a hard conversation, that's not a sign that something is wrong with you. That's your amygdala doing exactly what it was built to do, just aimed at the wrong century. Modern threats rarely require the response your body prepares for them. You don't need to outrun the email. You don't need to fight the deadline. The cortisol still rises, the heart still races, but there's nowhere for that energy to go, so it just sits in your body, unspent. This is why movement helps anxiety more than almost anything else. Walking, running, even pacing back and forth in a room gives that ancient response somewhere to go. You're not calming down by accident when you go for a walk after a stressful call. You're completing a biological loop that was interrupted the moment humans stopped needing to physically run from danger. Your ancestors' anxiety had an exit. Yours often doesn't, unless you build one. So the next time your heart races over something that logically poses no real threat, you don't have to fight the feeling or feel ashamed of it. You can recognize it as a message from very, very far away. A warning system built on the savanna, still standing guard, still watching for lions that no longer exist, still trying, in its own outdated way, to keep you alive. Your heart is racing again. Your palms are sweating. You still haven't done anything dangerous, but now you know what's really happening. That isn't a broken brain misfiring in the present. That's 200,000 years of survival, still trying to protect you, one heartbeat at a time.